Hello and welcome to the Marlin Business Conference, Commerce Reimagined. Today we are at day 3 and we have guest speaker Linda Peck here to speak. She is from the Greater Norfolk Innovation Center.
Greater Norfolk Corporation.
And she's coming to talk to you about the Norfolk Innovation Corridor. She's the executive director, so she's going to give us a lot of inside information and a little bit of background about herself, hopefully. So without further ado, I'll give her the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. Can everybody hear me okay? It's so nice to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you asked me, especially to come and talk about Commerce Reimagined. I can't imagine a better topic after this, well, we're still in an endemic, it looks like. But anyway, I wanted to give an introduction about myself because I think, I don't know, my background is so different. You know, most people have a career background that starts sort of like dots. You know, you're a junior analyst and you're a senior analyst and you're a assistant VP, da da da, and it kind of does this straight line up. Well, that's not me at all. So, when I went to Penn, I was an English major, and as an English major, I got to tell you, I have never been asked to write an email in iambic pentameter. In fact, I've never even heard that word other than my crossword puzzles. So what did I do after becoming an English major? I went to the Philadelphia Orchestra where I was corporate and foundation fundraising. Keep that in the back of your head, corporate and foundation fundraising. After a few years there, I decided I'd like to earn a little more money. So I went to Columbia Business School. I majored in corporate finance, and I got a very lucrative job coming out in Manhattan with GE Capital. And these were the years of the LBOs and big money. And I liked it for 2 years until I didn't. And why? Because one day I was in the shower, and I'm not going to get too graphic, but I said, you know, I am never going to be excellent at this job. Why? I was good. My skills were good, but I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't thinking, well, how am I going to restructure this deal when I'm in the shower? When I was on vacation, I didn't want to read Fortune and Forbes. I wanted to read classic fiction or whatnot. So I said, I will be good, but I'll never be great. So then I sort of had a conundrum. Like, what do you do now? You've got an MBA from a prominent school. And so I was talking to a friend, and she said, well, you love to teach, and you have this financial background. Why don't you put it together? Good idea, but what does that mean? So amazingly, and there's a great Jewish word, it's called beshert. Beshert means it's meant to be. I get a call, believe it or not, from a friend of mine who says, will you come to our middle school and teach our kids about the stock market? So what are the chances of that? So it's like, yeah, sure, why not? So I come and I teach about the stock market. I fall in love with this. And 19 years after teaching middle school, I fall in love with teaching. I raised my kids. I had summer vacation. I loved the success of my kids. You know, everywhere I went, I was working. Like if I went to a museum, I'd be thinking, how can I put this in my classroom? When I was reading a book, I was like, I got to remember to tell this to my students. And the profession and the personal just kind of wove together. And I really loved it. And I met some great people. Whoops. So anyway, the middle school closed, and a group came to me, and they said, will you help us start a school? Okay, I don't have a lot of experience in that, but, you know, I think I can do it, and I know how to ask questions. So I started a girls' high school. I'm kind of standing right in the middle here. I started a girls' high school at a temple, and fast forward a few more years, I become the executive director of the temple, which actually has some financial issues. And now things are like, wow, these dots are kind of starting to work together. I'm doing fundraising, I'm overseeing a religious school, I'm doing marketing, PR programming. It all comes together. And I did that for about 10 years. And then I read this article. This is November 2020. I read this article in the paper about something called the Norfolk Innovation Corridor. And we're trying to make Norfolk the most resilient community in the country. I said, wow, this is really interesting. I'm going to call the person in the paper And I did, and I volunteered, and the next thing you know, I'm the executive director of the Norfolk Innovation Corridor. And it's the best job in the world. And so I love this quote from Stephen Jobs, because I was talking about, connecting the dots. My dots are like, those paint and point things that the kids play, like that was kind of my career. And Stephen Jobs said, you can't connect the job dots looking forward. But when I look back, I see that everything fell together, and I bring it all to my job. And the thing that I think is so special for me is the passion. And so all of my jobs, I think I had curiosity, integrity, collaborative spirit, and now I have a great job. So let me tell you what the Norfolk Innovation Corridor is. The Norfolk Innovation Corridor came out of a Greater Norfolk Corporation, which is a group of about 130 top business leaders in Norfolk, whose mission is to make Norfolk better, make it more competitive, improve the quality of life. And by the way, Dr. Miller is one of our board members. In fact, I found out that I got this job while I was in his office. That was really fun. So we're focusing on how to make our city better, the Greater Norfolk Corporation. And I love this quote from Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. If you want to build a world-class city, build a great university and wait 200 years. Well, the GNC is not going to wait around 200 years. We need to figure something out. We need to figure what we can do in a more immediate way. And we decide that they learned that the way to do it is to encourage the entrepreneurial ecosystem, which was why it was so fun to be here to listen to your Shark Tank. So what is an innovation district? It's first, let me give you the strategic principles. Basically, if you want your community to grow, you have to have talent. It's all about attracting, retaining talent. And one of the reasons we want to create this innovation corridor is because we want you, who we trained, to stay here. And I will tell you, as someone who went to Philadelphia and I went to New York and I had great success there, it's been great being back here. The other thing is that we can't just let the city, we have a Department of Economic Development in the city, we can't just let them do it by themselves. We all need to get together, the academic institutions, the medical institutions, the philanthropic institutions, the businesses. We are all together invested in making this city better. And the last one is all about STEM. Did you know that STEM jobs and technology earn on average about twice what the regular jobs do? So we need to diversify our economy beyond tourism and the port, and STEM is the way to go. So their studies led to this concept of an innovation district, which are popping over, about 100 in the country and some all over the world. So what is an innovation district? It's a dense hub of economic activity where you have innovation, entrepreneurship, creativity, and placemaking. They all intersect. So, and how do you get these innovators and entrepreneurs to come? Well, you have programs and places that make them want to come. It's physically compact, so you can walk and get there. It's transit accessible, it's wired, it's mixed use. And this concept provides a strong foundation for the creation and expansion of jobs, and it strengthens inclusive growth and equity across the area. So here's a little video about Innovation District, and let's see if I can make this work. It's real short. So as a Mac person, I don't know what to press here. I think it'd be enter. So I'm not the tech person of the tech corridor, but thank you. It's not sound. The sound's not on. There it is. No?
geography of innovation is shifting.
He's so good. Let's give him a hand.
Should be able to. It's plugged in. Let's give it one more try. The geography. The geography of innovation is shifting. To find the innovative economy 20 years ago, a worker needed to drive to a secluded research park, work in isolation, and keep ideas secret. Today, proximity is everything. Workers want to be in urban places that are walkable, bikeable, hyper-caffeinated, where they can bump into other workers and share ideas. Firms also want to be close to other firms, research labs, and universities in collaborative spaces so that smart ideas can be turned into smart products for the market. Innovation districts are this century's productive geography. They are both competitive places and cool spaces, and they will transform your city and metropolis.
So you see the
geography.
The point of these are, I love this concept. It's called spontaneous collaborations. People get together, they brainstorm ideas, they connect. Let me introduce you to this one or whatnot, and it takes innovation to the next level, which turns into jobs and businesses and then economic growth. So, for instance, a wonderful innovation district is in Cortex, St. Louis, and look at these numbers. In 2018, the Cortex had an influence of $1 billion. In the region, it was $2 billion. $950 million plus of investments in the neighborhoods. It brings the neighborhoods up. I think it's really, really exciting. So just to let you know, the NIC started in 2017. They created a technology zone, which are the areas highlighted in pink. And by having it as a technology zone, certain technology companies qualified for some tax incentives, trying to get them to come here and make it a more dense population. And then the city council approved it. And then, like I mentioned, it launched in November 2022 with the goals of encouraging the growth in entrepreneurship, attracting companies, retaining our workforce, and really providing 21st century career opportunities. Although note the date, November 2022? I'm sorry, actually that's a typo, 2020. Big typo. So anyway, we examined our inventory of assets within the footprint of this, and we saw, wow, we have a lot of education and medical institutions here, and these provide an attractive means for an educated workforce, and the partnership leads to collaborative efforts. It could lead to R&D money. And then we have innovation districts also have what are called innovation assets. So they have incubators and accelerators that help these young companies start up with learning how to do a pitch, which you guys already know how to do. You could teach now. And it introduces them to customers, capital, and mentors. And so we have all these innovation assets. I'm going to skip that video. Innovation districts also have, they're very wired. They really need fast internet. And we are excited that we are creating a Southside fiber ring that's going to connect to these transatlantic cables. And we have the introduction of Metronet. We're going to have some of the fastest broadband in the area. So what is our competitive advantage? When we looked at our inventory of assets, we felt that we focus on resilient product services and technologies, and addressing specifically combating sea level rise, combating cybersecurity breaches, supply chain disruptions, and population health. And so when many people think of resilience, they think of sea level rise, adjusting to sea level rise, but we see it as adapting to menaces that kind of hold you back from the optimal functioning. And our goal is to become the most resilient city in the country. And we certainly are sitting here at this existential threat of sea level rise. We're perfectly poised to do this. But the other thing you need for an innovation district is they call it placemaking. You have to have an area where these high-tech people, these skilled people want to live. And so you'll notice that the Norfolk Innovation Corridor, the tech zone, is along this orange line, which is the Elizabeth River Trail. And the Elizabeth River Trail is one of these beautiful assets in our area. And we really call it the quality of life asset. And the ERT is in one of those elements of creating this vibrant place that people want to come to, and it cultivates a collision. You're biking with people, you're meeting them for a drink or whatnot. Also, to get these people to come here, you want the cultural attractions, and this is just a small sampling, but Norfolk really is the center of cultural attractions in the area. Innovation districts also want to make sure that you have access to economic opportunity through, not with cars, so you have multimodal ideas like we have the limes, we have the bikes, we have the Tide, and now we're having electric vehicle charging stations. And one of the things that I think is the most important to me is, you might have heard, a rising tide lifts all boats. The idea is that we need to make sure that everyone has opportunity. And innovation districts are often downtown, and they often bolster a butt in these economically distressed areas, like the red areas. And so the goal is that as companies start up, as companies grow, that they're going to increase local job opportunities to help the unemployed and the minority and the disadvantaged. So now you can see one of the things McKinsey asked me to address is, what is it like working in a pandemic? Well, we launched in a pandemic, made it really hard. In fact, in 2 years, we just had our first in-person board meeting in January. Nobody had met each other except by Zoom. And it was funny because it's like, wow, you're taller. You had no idea. You didn't even know they had legs. So anyway, what did we do in the meantime? We had meetings by Zoom. We crafted a strategic plan. The committees came together and decided their purpose and their objectives and their short-term objectives and whatnot. We worked on promoting our brand, and this has been really fun to see, but we have some of these signs on the LED that we're on scope. But today I just saw us at EVMS, which was exciting. And then slowly, like I said, in January, we started having meetings. I started to be able to sit with these entrepreneurs. And we're having programs. For instance, we had our first Nick Unfiltered, a caffeinated collaboration series where we invited people to meet different entrepreneurs. In fact, yesterday, Pratik was in the news about a large expansion in the area, and he was also called out in the mayor's State of the City. We have a walk on the trail tomorrow. And so anyway, the NIC is dedicated to creating economic opportunity for all, fostering job creation, revitalizing our community. And you can see we've had these successes. I mean, these companies are growing, and as they're growing, they're building. This company just announced, the governor came down and announced, $5 million expansion, 92 new jobs. It's exactly what our goal was, and so this is a promising start. We also made international attention, the partnership, the Norfolk Innovation Corridor. It's a public-private partnership. Like I said at the beginning, we can't just depend on the city to do this by itself. We work together. And so we won gold at an international conference. And then one of our companies, Rise, is specifically working on solutions to sea level rise. And one of their companies came up with FloodMap, ways helps you circumvent traffic. Well, now they put on top of it, and this is so important in downtown Norfolk, the flood, so you can know what streets, national attention. And then the Elizabeth River Project is doing this super cool Ryan Resilience Lab. They even have part of the building that floats. And it's really about learning to live with sea level rise. We're not going to change it, but we need to learn so they have a living coastline. And keep your eyes on this. This is going to be built soon. So anyway, what are my takeaways? You know, I think it's really important to do well and take your classes, but you have no idea where you're, I mean, maybe you do. I didn't know where my career was going to go. Like I said, I was like pointillism. I was all over the place. But I love this quote from an author, Wendy Mogul, from the book, The Blessing of the Skin Knee. The most reliable predictors of adult success are not grades in high school or collegiate pedigree. They're the qualities that Daniel Coleman calls emotional intelligence. This is maybe something you've heard about in your classroom, but it's empathy, it's optimism, it's flexibility, a good sense of humor, the capacity to function as a team member, and a positive reaction to setbacks. And I got to tell you, if you didn't have this stuff during COVID, you were not doing well. I mean, you had to expect the unexpected, and as soon as you thought you knew something, the whole world was changing. But I think if you have humor and if you have a team and you have curiosity, I think you have really great opportunities. So anyway, that's my takeaway. Thank you so much for inviting me, and hope I said something interesting to you, and feel free to ask me any questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I thought it was wonderful. And I, too, was in the audience when Dr. Alexander was bigger city. And it was very, very favorable. But he didn't allude to, and I am interested in knowing what your feelings of it would be. Has Norfolk gone back to where it was pre-pandemic? I mean, even Kenny said, this is the first time we're together. And it was. And I think of the stories that we've been hearing, reading, and seeing, and the changing market, and people's place with where they are in their careers, etc. That there's empty office spaces. How are we doing in Norfolk?
So just for people who can't hear, the question was, do you think that Norfolk is back to the pre-pandemic level? I don't have the facts and the statistics on that, but I would agree that we're not there yet. You know, some people have decided that they're not coming back to the office. And things are still closing down. You know, a lot of things shut down, and company, especially restaurants and whatnot, they closed. So I don't think we're back yet, but forgive me for throwing this word out, but I think there's a resilience here, and I think we are poised to come back. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
What motivates you to do what you do?
Oh, gosh. First of all, true confessions, I want this NIC Innovation Corridor to succeed because I want my children to come back here. Okay? When I moved back from Philadelphia, I lived next door to my Bubby and Papa. That's how I called my grandparents. My other grandmother was in the building, and my parents were in the building across the way. That is a really cool way to raise your family. It's awesome. And I'm not just talking babysitters. That's really helpful. But my daughter is a CPA in Atlanta. That's a really vibrant city. You know, how do I compete with Atlanta? Hopefully, our traffic's bad, but not like their traffic. And they don't have water. I mean, you know, you got to drive a long time just to go jump in a lake. Who wants that? And my son just graduated from James Madison, and he started his career in Richmond. Okay, Richmond's great, better than when I grew up. But I need jobs. I need exciting companies for him to want to come back to. But these companies, so this SVT Robotics, about 4 or 5 years ago, he was in an incubator. You know, that's kind of where you start and learn. You know, he's almost a $100 million company now. He's amazing. And he's bringing Fortune 500 companies here to look and show them off, and they're loving this area. I mean, our quality of life is better. It's easier to buy property. So anyway, I think we're growing, and so I love the idea of making Norfolk better. I also personally love the idea of helping everybody. If we can bring jobs and lift up the minority community, especially like in Norfolk, we have the St. Paul's redevelopment. They were projects, and they've been there, and they're in the process of tearing them down and rebuilding something. But when we really rebuild them, we need to make sure we have jobs for these people. And I think we will all win when everybody has economic opportunity. And that's just what I love it. Another question?
Yeah, it was kind of like a two-parter. I know you tapped into it a little bit about it when you were speaking about becoming the executive director, but like, what really was like that pushing factor? Like, was it the people that are around you that decided to keep you for the greater good? Did you just stick with the company because you were like, oh, I can make money? Or
Wait, so which job? I had lots of jobs.
so the one that you're in now as like the executive director, like what were the like pushing factors, or really the people that kept you in this job? Did you just work your way up there?
Well, no, it's a good point. I was actually executive director at this temple, and I kind of had done what I needed to do. I had set up, policies and procedures and an operating manual. I mean, my thing was, if I get hit by a bus, you should just, say, I'm sorry she got hit by a bus, but turn the page and operate your business. That's how business, in my opinion, needs to run. And the fact that all my new employees knew what they were doing, they didn't need me there. I mean, I took a 2-week trip to New Zealand, and I could do a couple minutes on my phone and run the company. So I was ready to do something more. So I volunteered for this, to work on a committee, and I loved what they did, and they saw that they could use my skills, especially with a startup. And then going back, I'd started a little school, so it was little. And then when I cleaned up this temple and helped to take them to the next level, those were skills that I could use. And then the other thing that's interesting, when I get a new business card, I might just call myself Connector, because I really love connecting people. And I've been here a long time in the city. I went to school here. I have family. I'm relatively friendly and say hi to people. And I say, oh, did you know this one and that one? And it's really exciting to take advantage of those skills, especially to make my city better, because I live here. Yes, sir.
So I love like the Elizabeth River Trail area and downtown Norfolk and Granby Street area, but I know a lot of people have like commented just like on the safety of the area. I was wondering if the NIC has ever like touched upon that, talked about that, just like crime and safety aspect of things.
That is a huge issue, and unfortunately, it's not a Nick issue. It's not a Norfolk issue. It is our country's issue, and it's really horrible. So City Council is trying to address it, and they're coming up with ideas like, let's close the restaurants at 12, and maybe we need to wad people down, which they were supposed to do anyway. But that's like a Band-Aid, in my opinion. And there's another great book, If I Were in Charge of the World. Do you know this book by Judith Bors? It's the same woman who wrote Alexander and the Horrible, Very Bad, Terrible Day. So my famous quote is, if I were in charge of the world, I would pay all teachers $125,000 at starting. And can you imagine what kind of people we would get in education? And can you imagine what kind of lift we would get to the kids, and how they would feel, and how they would feel proud, and they would have opportunities and whatnot. And then maybe they, when someone spills your drink on you, you know how to talk about it, and you don't have to take out a gun and shoot people. For goodness sake, in Sacramento, they had that shooting, 100 bullets. So it's a big problem. I don't have a funding source yet. I have an idea, but those are my ideas. And Mackenzie, to answer your other question, this is the kind of stuff I get to think about in my job. It's awesome. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that reinvesting in the community will help with that? To pick back up this question, that would help.
Absolutely.
Crime rate and uplifting, like you already mentioned, uplifting that community. You think it will?
Yeah, I think people need jobs. I think people need health care. They need to feel a part of something and whatnot. And so it's really a huge problem. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke a lot about marketing and networking. Do you have any advice for the students on what's the best route for them to network? This is the time to do it, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's an excellent question. First of all, as you can tell, people love to talk about themselves, right? I mean, I'm sitting there yapping. She asked me to talk about the Nick. What did I do? 45 minutes on myself? No, but if you ask people, can you tell me how'd you get in your career? What do you think it needs? What does it take to be successful? Do you know anyone else I can talk to? I mean, don't be afraid. If someone gives you their number, call them. One thing I've noticed about people in your generation, it's like, oh, I'll text them. Don't be afraid to call them. They might not call you back, but pick up the phone. And if you go to a networking, believe it or not, I was so shy growing up. I was so shy. I didn't even talk until I moved to Manhattan, because if I didn't talk, I wouldn't get on the bus or I wouldn't get food. Like, you had to learn to talk. But, it's so rewarding to reach out. And most people want to help. And they're like, oh, I know someone, call this one. And so, by the way, I did leave my cards out there. So I am the connector. But feel free to take me up on that. But yeah, don't be afraid to call people. Don't be afraid to ask. And I think the other thing is, like, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say what, explain that. I'm not sure I caught that. Help me understand this, or what do I, ask for help. People love to give help, Yes, sir.
Really attractive people to the area. We still haven't succeeded in landing the major professional sports teams. Where does this rate in terms of priorities and how likely that is in the future?
You're talking to the wrong person, because I don't even I get baseball and football confused, because I'm in a book, and my son's like, oh my gosh, Mom, the Rams aren't playing the Dodgers. But I do know that with Military Circle, there are 3 proposals for redeveloping Military Circle. And I think 1 or 2 of them have a big arena, and with the possibility of getting that. So I'm sorry, I am completely sports illiterate, so I don't have a really good answer for that. But that would be good for my partner, because we partner with the city, and they're the ones who know. I'm sort of more focused on the entrepreneur and the Nick and this and that. Yes.
Is there any particular city that you're using as a template, or that you want Norfolk to mirror?
Oh, that's a great idea. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, right? So I look at this Cortex. That's one of the best. I was fortunate to fly out to Cleveland. Now, so we have Centera and we have EVMS, and they have the Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the preeminent hospitals in the world. So there's a different, but you know what? They didn't have a downtown. Our downtown is fun. Like you said, it's walkable and this and that. And then I'm getting ready to go to Winston-Salem to check theirs out. So I look to see what are they doing and where are they in their life cycle. We're a baby, and by the way, for the Nick, I'm only quarter time. My other job is Greater Norfolk. So, I've been there 8 months, and what's that, 2 months? So I'm pretty proud. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Yes.
So what do you think currently are the largest obstacles that the company is facing right now?
Oh, great question. It's talent. And maybe you guys can help me understand. I don't understand the Great Resignation. I can see. I don't know, how do you pay your bills if you're not working? That's why when I saw that, I misunderstood that, did you hear my question to one of you guys? Like, oh, there's a starting salary, $100,000 for all kids 18 to 24. It's like, wow, that's really good. But we're having trouble getting talent. And one of these gentlemen I mentioned to you is SVT Robotics, who's really grown leaps and bounds. His goal, and it's actually I'm adopting it too, is we need 10,000 software engineers to come here. Let's think about that. What would an addition of 10,000 software engineers do to our community? First of all, at SVT Robotics, the starting pay, and I don't even think these are the tech people, is $115,000. It's good money, right? In a growing company. But these are people who are going to buy houses, send their kids to school, attend the arts, donate money, and make the community better. So I would love for us to be able to get more people here and get the word out. And we have an interesting word, which is stickiness. I think Norfolk has a stickiness. Like, when you think about, oh, where do I want to go? I want to go to, Pittsburgh, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Austin. Norfolk is not yet up there. But when you come to Norfolk and you're like, oh man, I can buy this house on the water for what? And you see that it's water everywhere and it's beautiful. We have a stickiness, and then they come and stay. So we have to figure out, how do we get them here in the first place? And when I have a marketing budget, which I'm working on, I want to get that word out there. Yes, sir.
Two questions very quick. First one is, if you read Malcolm Gladwell's two references to interconnection stickiness and open network. The second is, you mentioned it, it was mentioned in the State of the City, and it was mentioned yesterday by the city senator. It's all about brain drain. And I don't know if people really know what that is. I didn't know until recently, because I've heard it so often in a short period of time, that that's becoming an issue. When I think of brain drain, I think of West Virginia, and where people are investing in that. So I believe strongly this area is very attractive. I don't know if our students know.
Well, I was just going to say, how many of you would like, at this point, before I started speaking, okay, how many of you thought about staying here? And how many of you thought about leaving? So that's the brain drain. The brain drain is we train you and you leave, which I understand. I left. I wanted to get out of Dodge. But I do hope maybe you get trained and you come back, because it's a great place to be. And by the way, brain drain is how this Norfolk Innovation Corridor, it was a task force for Greater Norfolk Corporation. And it was originally called like brain drain. What do we do about the brain drain? Yes.
So how do you get this information toward the minority community? I love the fact innovation and collaborative thinking. How do you get them to buy in?
I love that question. Okay, so what do? First of all, I'm very aware of my white privilege. I don't know a lot of people in projects. Although I was there the other day and walked around and met some people, and that was really interesting. And I met some young women who want to they're 14, 15, and they want to be entrepreneurs. I was like, here's my card. But I am working with Norfolk State has an innovation center, and I've been working with them. There is a wonderful banker who's very interested in this, and I'm looking at places where we can take out programs. So it's like how to prepare yourself for setting up for credit. I'm over. Oh, okay. How do setting up for credit, making sure that you can, because a lot of the businesses are sort of homespun, but set yourself up so that you will have financials, so that you can have credit, so that you can go on to do a business. I'm very connected with, there's a great organization called Black Brand with Blair Durham. Do you know Blair?
Oh, no.
I will connect you with her. But she's doing some super stuff really focused on the minority community, and I want to make sure that we are partnering so that we can do things together. I'm also reaching out to the YMCA and trying, in fact, I mentioned Winston-Salem. This woman came up to me with this idea about an invention convention. And it's a curriculum that starts K to 3 and goes middle school, high school. And it's a free curriculum. And I want Nick to sponsor this so that next year we can have an invention convention in Virginia. But, can you imagine teaching these skills to the young generation so they grow up thinking about innovation? And I think the other thing that's so important is when you think about innovation, there's failure. And it's okay to fail. But like the blessing of the skin, you got to pick yourself up and try again. The goal is to fail forward, And so I'm looking at what we can do, because this is really important. I believe that the Norfolk Innovation Corridor will not be successful unless we are inclusive for all.
Glad to hear you ask that question about who plans on staying and who's planning on leaving. An interesting statistic that students may not know is that Virginia Wesleyan is about 16% higher than any other institution in the area for students who are attracted to this area to attend college and then ultimately stay here. So there's opportunity. One of the seeing a lot of younger people that come in with tunnel vision. They come in knowing that this is what they want to do, and they're blood, sweat, tears until they get there. And your story was you kind of jumped around one thing to the next. And I think that's good for them to hear because it breaks up that tunnel vision. The area has a ton of opportunity, and you see it every day. She spoke on it today. And one of the biggest things is being able to feel comfortable enough to make that jump. So for you, what was that safety net feeling that made you say, okay, let's try this, okay, let's try that?
A couple of times they were really scary, you know. Like when my middle school closed, it was so sad. I had a kid, it was a triplet, and he said, Miss Peck, I'm going to go sit on the roof and threaten to jump off unless they keep this school open. Of course he didn't, but what middle school student talks about that, wanting to keep a middle school there? I mean, middle school, you know, so I wasn't sure what was there, but it's almost like you just have to be vulnerable, and you have to have a little bit of that optimism. You have to have flexibility because you don't know which way you're going. And you have to have a good sense of humor. I mean, when you're ready to cry, it's like, you know, cry with someone else because then you'll probably laugh together, you know. Yes, sir. Are you talking about the effect on the water, or?
The community, considering like casinos aren't exactly a way to revive in area.
That's a good question. I think we'll see how that works. Remember, I'm not in charge of the world. I dream about it, but I'm not in charge of the world. Yes, ma'am.
So if I were an entrepreneur interested in locating in this corridor, what would I do? Would I come to your organization? What kind of services would you hook me up with?
Yeah, that's great. And again, we are establishing that, like a welcome package and a whatnot. But basically, I would talk to you about what do you need. You know, do you need help getting a business license? Do you need, you know, I can tell you what the resources we have, our inventory of resources, and help connect you. I'd also put you with the city because if you fall into our technology zone, you're going to get some tax incentives. You know, and then we're going to help publicize you. For instance, so this is actually really cool. I'm also the head of the Greater Norfolk Corporation. As I mentioned, the Greater Norfolk Corporation is like the top business leaders of businesses and the medical institutions and the academic institutions. So I get these entrepreneurs from my entrepreneurial community, and I start my GNC meetings with an entrepreneurial minute. And so I have these great people who kind of need contacts, and they do these 5-minute presentations, just like you. A little bit of a Shark Tank, not quite as a direct ask. It's a little bit more subtle, and every single one, they've, you know, the last one, the woman said, I need space. And she walked off the stage and 3 real estate guys were giving her card. One guy needed a connection with waterworks, and Virginia Natural Gas was like, you know, call me, I'm going to help you. So it's been really, you know, it's that spontaneous collaborations, you know. So we will try to connect with the resources. I'm going to need a marketing person real soon. I'm hoping to have that in the budget. So, okay. Well, thank you again. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your curiosity. And I'm so impressed with what you guys are doing. I loved your shark pitches. And that's it. Thank you.
Oh, no, okay. Well, thank thank you all for coming. It was truly a pleasure to have you, Ms. Peck. I know we all enjoyed that. I also want to take a moment to thank President Miller. Without him, I would have never found Linda Peck. I would never met her. I would have never got to really speak to her. So it's really a great opportunity. You never know who you might be in contact with. Of course, I also want to thank, Jason Seward. Of course, I want to thank Keith Moore. I want to thank everybody for being here. It's truly a pleasure to have you, and the business conference wouldn't be